Hi, I'm CJ and I use they, them pronouns.
Hi, I'm Tara, and I use she, her pronouns.
Hello, I'm Charlene, and I use she, her pronouns.
Tara is a minister's assistant at the Berkeley Buddhist Temple. She's a member of the Community Outreach Committee and is currently a social worker.
And this is Charlene. Charlene is a former Dharma School student, and she was the Berkeley Buddhist Temple Junior Young Buddhist Association president, and she is currently a first year at a first year university student.
And this is CJ. They are a minister's assistant at Berkeley Buddhist Temple and assisting minister at the Buddhist Temple of Marin. Currently, they're on the Community Outreach Committee. So, as we just demonstrated how to introduce ourselves and each other, you may have noticed that we included pronouns. And pronouns can represent how we identify ourselves in relation to gender. Many of us have grown up to believe gender is binary. However, there are a spectrum of genders. Some people identify as male or female, some identify as neither, and some are in between. The way one identifies can change throughout their lives. And at the Berkeley Buddhist Temple, we value diversity and being accepting of all people. To do this, it is important that we are respectful and welcoming towards everyone's identities and pronouns. And you can see on the slide, there are some examples of pronouns one might use.
All right, so CJ, Charlene, and I are all part of the Buddhists Living in Equity and Non-Discrimination Committee, also known as the Blend Committee. So the Blend Committee started originally when Charlene and I went to a workshop with the Young Buddhist Editorial, and during the discussion, we wanted to create a committee at the Berkeley Buddhist Temple that focused on the making sure our space is safe and welcoming and inclusive of everybody. And so since then, we've worked with a lot of different people, such as Zora and John. And currently on our committee, we also have Reverend Kuwahara, we have Kyo-san, and we have Lauren, and we have Joyce, and we have Stacy, who are also on the Blend Committee. And so together we've been working on this living mission statement. And so where it is right now, it is to intentionally and bravely create a safe space where everyone feels welcome and included with all of our different identities and parts of who we are as individuals. To uphold the values of diversity and inclusion by learning and growing with our Sangha and community to continually work towards wisdom and expressing compassion for all people as they are. Our values are, we value diversity and inclusion, which are expressions of the primal vow, compassion for all sentient beings.
So, in order to illustrate the importance of recognizing people's pronouns, I wanted to share a story with you. One time, I was at an event and everyone was introducing themselves with their pronouns. After introducing herself, one of the participants complained, saying, "I don't understand why we have to do this. I'm clearly a lady. You can look at me and tell. I can tell pretty much who everyone is. Maybe only the people who look different need to introduce themselves like this." After the participant said this, I felt bad, like I was causing a problem for everyone else, and that people should be able to just look at me and know I'm transgender and non-binary. Maybe there were other people in the room who felt the same way, but they didn't feel welcome like me.
Thank you, CJ, for sharing that with us. And so this story is an example of where we want to try to create a space that is safe for everybody. And so in this situation, while this person might have had the intention of maybe just having maybe a more efficient meeting, but didn't realize that their impact was harmful to CJ and maybe others in the room. And so part of the Blend Committee is to try to learn together about how we can respect everybody and how they identify. And part of that is referring to people, as Charlene was saying, by their pronouns and the name that they identify with.
So this graphic of our gender unicorn by Trans Student Educational Resources helps us visualize a few of the many ways a person may identify. And you can notice that these are sliding scales, so one can move any of the three of the circles on a category to a place that they feel best represents themselves. And so first we have gender identity, and this is how you personally view yourself. This can be female, male, non-binary, or genderqueer, which refers to anything that is not exclusively male or female. And then we have gender expression or presentation. This is how you express your gender identity to the world. And it's important to keep in mind that not everyone expresses themselves in a way that corresponds to what is expected of them based on their gender identity. And then we have attraction, which refers to who you are attracted to. And there are different types of attraction and one doesn't necessarily imply the other. And we're going to leave this slide up for a little bit, and we invite you to reflect on how you may interact with this graphic. Where would you slide those circles?
Thank you, everybody, for reflecting with us. Feel free to write down or take a picture of this, and we can also share this image later. All right, and so now after learning all of this about pronouns and sexuality and gender identity and expression, how is it that we can be an ally and make sure that we're creating a safe space for everybody? How is it that we can show compassion for everybody?
One of those ways, which we displayed for you all today, is by asking and using pronouns. So instead of like the participant in the meeting I went to, instead of assuming what everyone's pronouns are and how they identify and what their gender is, it's good to ask and to lead by example by introducing yourself with your name and your pronoun, like I did. My name's CJ, and I use they, them pronouns.
We can also show compassion by using gender inclusive language like you all, y'all, or folks, or partner instead of you guys, or assuming someone, say, has a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
Another way is also to not single out or tokenize any one person because of their identity. We don't want to single out somebody and ask them to speak on behalf of everyone who identifies in that way.
I know that this could be a lot of information all at one time. And that's okay because we're all on a learning journey together. We should all try our best to keep learning and researching. We all share a responsibility to speak out. It shouldn't be limited to queer folks and our allies to speak up for ourselves. Here are a few resources that you can use to learn a bit more about gender and sexuality. A few of them are specifically oriented towards Buddhist communities. We also have a list of Netflix shows on the next slide.
Yes, as CJ mentioned, here's a list of media that highlights various stories in the LGBTQ community. I'd like to talk a little about Queer, which is one of my favorite shows. And I appreciate how it's not just a transformation of these people's physical lives and like their physical appearance, but a transformation of their selves and their sense of self and self-confidence, which I really appreciate seeing throughout the show. And it's a tearjerker, but it is also a feel-good show to enjoy with family.
A show that I've watched with my family is Pose. And so Pose takes place during the AIDS epidemic in New York and features really tells the story of transgender and queer people of color. And it also shows the ball culture and also shows a chosen home. And so the other thing that Pose really strives to do is to ensure that the actors are acting as themselves. So someone who's transgender in the show also identifies as transgender.
One of my favorite films on this list is Paris is Burning, which is a documentary about gay culture in New York City during the 80s. And it happens during the height of the AIDS pandemic. So it's kind of hard to watch because there's a lot of sad stories and loss, but it also celebrates a lot of the joy, especially in communities of color in the gay community in the 80s. I think this film's really important, especially for a lot of our younger LGBTQ folks, because we've inherited a rich history and it's important for us to know some aspects of our culture and the suffering that happened during the 80s during the AIDS pandemic.
All right, thank you, everyone. And we'll also include these in the chat and provide this if you want to join us later.
So we're almost done with our presentation today, but I wanted to tie back some of what we're talking about to our Buddhist teachings. If you please join me in Gassho, I'd like to share a passage from the smaller Amida Sutra. It says, "In the Pure Land, there are lotus ponds whose shores are decorated with 7 kinds of jewels. The ponds brim with waters of 8 good qualities, and the floor of the ponds are lined with sands of gold. The ponds are surrounded by steps on their 4 sides made of gold, silver, lapis lazuli, and crystal. Above are pavilions lavishly adorned with the 7 jewels of gold, silver, lapis lazuli, crystal, coral, red pearls, and agate. There are lotuses blooming in the pond, and their flowers are as large as the wheel of a cart. The blue flowers emit blue light. The yellow flowers emit a yellow light. The red flowers emit a red light, and the white flowers emit a white light. Each of the lotus flowers glows, weaving a harmonic scene while emitting a subtle fragrance. Shariputra, this land of ultimate bliss is an ideal environment that whatever one lays eyes upon will bring about awakening. Namo Amida. Namo Amida. Namo Amida. Namo Amida. Namo Amida. This is one of my favorite passages in our sacred text of the 3 Pure Land Sutras. I love the scenery that is woven in this description of the Pure Land by Shakyamuni Buddha. You can almost see with your mind's eye the beautiful individual qualities of the Pure Land, all of these beautiful gems and crystals, precious metals. It's supposed to inspire us in order to awaken to the reality of the world that we live in. Each flower, each lotus emits its own light, and there's individuality within the Pure Land. And I think it gives us a way of looking at and appreciating one another as we live this life in this world. So we can see that even though we're different, each one of us has beautiful and wonderful qualities. And that's part of why we wanted to talk about the topic today of diversity and LGBTQ identities. Gender and sexuality is different for each of us. And I think if we can learn that about one another and really embrace our differences, then we can make the world a better place and make our temples more welcoming and accepting.
Thank you all for listening. And if you would like to discuss that beautiful quote CJ just shared with us further, feel free to join us at our Blended Coffee Social to voice any questions, anything that's been on your mind. And also feel free to email us at info@berkeleybuddhisttemple.org for any questions if you're unable to make it later today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.